time for Wednesday's hour number 2 on #DailyK with your host, Peter Bint. Korean dramas, movies, and even lyrics. Why is the world paying attention to Korean stories?
From classics to modern masterpieces, time to dig deep into the charms of Korean literature.
On Check It Out
with Paul.
It's a Wednesday, it's a hump day. Paul is definitely in the studio. You feel more in than ever, I must say today, Paul, because we've shed the mask after the vaccination and 2-week thing, and now we've shed the screen today. This is actually my first time being unscreened from a guest.
I can't touch you. I can't touch you.
That's where I got vaccinated on Monday. Thank you very much.
Just keep poking it then. I have to say, I'm not sure we should, because the cases are over 4,000 today.
Did we get
Korea.
The numbers confirmed?
It's 4,000 and something.
That's the record, isn't it?
Yeah, we've broken the
record.
Yeah,
that used to be a good thing for many other areas of life, but not for COVID.
No, not for COVID. So I have a feeling that Seoul might be coming under some more quarantine measures.
Maybe. I was listening to the radio today, but they're also saying, definitely in Western countries, but even here in Korea, it might be tricky with the population so used to now having with Corona, and I guess for the most part...
It's only been 3 weeks.
Yeah, I've forgotten what it was like with Corona. We've got short memories, Paul, but I guess the numbers maybe do point to that, especially if the number of critical patients is on the rise.
Well, it is on the rise, so that's the worrying thing. The number of beds is always very, very important. So I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see, but certainly I wouldn't be unhappy if we had restrictions coming back in.
You're very good with that, Paul, I must say. I wouldn't be happy. I'd be okay. I would abide by it. But you are a shining example, I think.
It's because I like to stay at home.
Just a homebody. Sherry Osborne says, I'd love to let Paul know that after last week, I read The Full Hunger and Slaughter by Chaesam on the weekend. Incredibly sad, but beautifully told.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear it, Sherry. Thank you for taking the time to read it. I know it's a short story, but it's a really powerful one.
Getting on to today's book, today's story, today's literature. What are we looking forward to?
I've got something to calm you.
Oh.
To make your Wednesday even better, to make you feel relaxed, to get you in touch with nature. Oh. I've got some gorgeous poetry all about the pleasures of the natural world, the joys of youth and the delights of nostalgia.
That does sound lovely. I feel like we've been on tenterhooks for many a Wednesday these days, so a bit of relaxation, not too much drama.
No.
Okay. It's
called 아득하면 되리다. Enough to say it's far. It's by Pak Chaesam and it's translated by David R. McCann and Jiwon Shin. And as usual, we got 3 gorgeous poems to go through, and hopefully you'll enjoy this little taste of the beautiful poetic world of Park.
Okay, have we heard from Pak Chaesam before?
No, it's the first time for us, and he's a really interesting person. He was born in 1933 in Japan, moved back to Korea at the age of 3, and grew up really, really poor in a seaside town on Korea's south coast. He went to university, he went to Korea University, but he dropped out. I guess it wasn't for him.
I was going to say that's prestigious, but dropping out not so much.
No, but he did pursue his career in writing. He went on to become a newspaper reporter, a newspaper editor, as well as continuing to write his poetry. And he first got published in 1955. And what's interesting was at the time, everyone was being a bit more edgy. They were going for realism or modernism or, more contemporary style poetry. Yeah. But he's like, no, I want to write about the beauty of nature and the pain of life.
Oh, going a bit old school.
Yeah, he went against the grain. And what's really interesting is he draws on his vivid memories of his childhood. And the poems are just gorgeous. And he published many collections in Korean. Fortunately, we have this one in English. It's a lovely big book of poetry. He's won many awards, including the Contemporary Literature Award and the Korean Literature Writers Award, but sadly he passed away in 1997. But we still have his poems.
Okay, so a big fat book of poetry if you want it all, but we're just going to focus on 3 today. And translator's name... doesn't ring a bell, but I could have a bad memory. David McCann?
You're absolutely right. We haven't featured either David R. McCann or Jiwon Shin before. McCann is the Korea Foundation Professor of Korean Literature at Harvard. and he's worked on a number of translations, some short fiction, but mostly poetry. He's had a total of 31 books published.
Wow.
He's translated poems by Kim So-wol, by Go-eun, by Kim Nam-jo, and he won the Korean Cultural Order of Merit in 2006, which is a very big, prestigious honor.
Thumbs up.
And Jiwon Shin, she's taught at both UC Berkeley and Arizona State University, teaching Korean literature, and she's translated this as well as poetry by Kim Hae-sun, who we featured before. A few weeks ago, we had Autobiography of Death.
Okie dokie. Poetry by that author, not that actual book, right?
No.
Okay. So the poetry, it's 3 different poems, but not too much drama. Lots of focus on nature and calming us down. Maybe a bit meditative.
I would say so. A little bit melancholic, a little bit nostalgic. There's no twist ending.
Okay.
Tropic Girl.
Well,
I'm going to tell you now.
She is pretty sure. I'm not expecting calm. Paul doesn't usually lull us into a false sense of security deliberately,
Or
right?
do I?
Oh no, now I'm thinking Sherry's saying I'm going to look it up already because if Paul recommends it, I know I will love it.
Oh, I think you will. It's a beautiful book of poetry. And the great thing is it's bilingual. You get the Korean original poems along with the English translations.
Well, that's great because we often say it with poetry. That's probably trickier than any other format to have taken over to another language and still have a similar feel. So we're going to start off with poem number 1. Is this a special one?
It's the title of the book. Enough to say it's far.
Let's take a listen.
About the distance, to the sun and moon, to the stars, whatever else, it is enough to say it's far. And the distance between my love and me, since it cannot be measured with a rule, for this too, it is enough to say it's far. I cannot see beyond these things, afloat, glimmering in the bowl of cool water. And because of my thirst, now I have no other thought than to drink of this cool water.
We have lots of messages coming in. One from Clay B on V Live saying, this is the perfect music to start writing one of my final class papers.
Ooh.
Nice and relaxed. I hope the readings helped as well. If they disturb you, let us know and we'll tell Paul to keep it down.
I can leave. If you want me to leave, I can leave the studio right now.
Give the people what they want. No, they want you to stay.
Okay. I've got Stacey Wiley saying, I'm so touched. And Sophie saying, it's a common problem with long-distance love relationships. Sad, but it's the truth. They will always end with breaking up. Oh dear. And Sherry saying, looking it up already because if Paul recommends it, I know I will love it. It makes a great practice book for reading in Korean as well then. And I love the implication that the distance to the sun and the moon is the same as the distance between these two people because if you're apart, it may as well be the sun.
Oh, that's very true, right?
Very insightful, yes.
Yeah, even if there's just like a meter but a brick wall between you, you may as well be on different planets. I like that way.
Have you
of
put a
thinking.
brick wall between you and your wife?
Not at all. Not at all. We do sleep on the very opposite sides of the bed. In the middle, there is a big space usually, but it's because we're quite sensitive. TMI, and then what did we get? Tropic Girl K saying, I'm not thinking distance in literal terms, but distance as in minds being elsewhere. Oh,
That's very interesting. I think these are all really good interpretations.
yes, right. This distance. And I love that poem and how it was talking about those two different things and then comparing them. And then the thirst to drink this cool water. I got the message that maybe that cool water was the love of that other person or something.
Ooh, that is a very different interpretation to me.
Okay.
I'm interested. Okay, look, I'll give you my interpretation,
Yes.
and I love to hear everybody else's, including yours too,
Yes.
Peter. For me, it's an ode to a missed love.
Oh.
Or maybe an unrequited love. But I find it really hard to tell who this love might be, this object of his affections. I was thinking a lot about this last night.
Okay.
Like, it could be the jaksa랑, the one-sided love.
Sure.
It could be an ex-lover. It could be a lover who's separated by distance, or as Tropic Girl's saying, thinking in a different way.
Yeah.
Or it could be a lover separated by death.
Oh, I
So
see.
I don't know, but I think it's one of it's one of those, or it's all of those, and that's the power of Park's poetry. He manages to express something so simply and so beautifully. That feeling, that distance, as you described, whether it's a brick wall and 1 meter, or whether it's a long distance. When we feel separated, it is like we're a whole galaxy apart.
Yeah, that's so deep and meaningful. And I guess, it could be what you said, Paul. And the cool water is them wanting that love again, but it might not be possible. Yeah, I think you're right.
But this is where I disagree with you about the cool water. Because for me, it's like he's drawn back to the moment, to the present. He must quench his thirst with this bowl of cool water.
Oh, literal, maybe.
Yeah, and I wonder, it feels a little bit like it's a meditation on what is important in the moment.
Okay.
Right now, the physical needs that we have. And so while this loss of love or this separation is haunting us on and on forever and forever, our body has more pressing needs. We have to live, we have to survive, we have to drink the cool water. We can't always contemplate our lost love.
You're kind of crashing back down to earth with that thirst, right?
Yeah.
Your body's telling you, hey, this is the moment right now.
Yeah, and it's as you said, a meditation about living in the moment. But that's just my opinion. That's just my interpretation. I'm not saying this is the one and only or the correct one, but of course it is because it's me. But that's what I got from this poem.
That's why we pay Paul the big bucks.
You don't pay me the big bucks.
The little
When
bucks.
do I get the big bucks?
Siska says so many possibilities and all make sense and all are a kind of distance as well.
Yeah.
And Sophie's saying loneliness really can be a killer, right? It silently does that, slowly inside. And I think it happened to my late grandfather as well.
Oh, goodness.
And maybe that's the thing. It's gnawing away all the time. And then you come back to your body, you drink the cool water, you quench the thirst, then you go back to wallowing in that or just not being able to get over it. I don't know. There's so many different takes on this. It's not as cheerful as I expected so far.
I didn't say it was going to be cheerful. I said it was going to be calm.
All right.
There's a difference between those two words, Peter.
Next poem, similar vibe.
I'm not going to... Because whatever I say, it's not going to meet your expectations.
Nitpick. All right, at least give us a title.
Okay, this second poem is called The Road Back. Starting on the frosty path at dawn, Mother now soaked from the heavy night's dew. Mother has come back after a day of selling to the place where we lie asleep. There is no jar of honey on the shelf, only the grey dust piling, while we children, too small and dirty to work off the debts, lie stretched out here, there. No one to see, no one to comprehend, when she unties the starlight she carries back on her forehead and shakes loose the moonlight that clings to her sleeves.
That seems a little down as well and depressing.
I will go. If you want me to go, Peter, I will leave the studio right now.
No, I'm curious, what is this work that she's done, a day of selling to the place where we lie asleep? And then it seems like the absence of honey may be symbolising the absence of something good and lots of grey dust piling. No one to see her do all these things as well. I find that very sad
Unwitnessed.
as well. But it talks then about the moonlight, the starlight, which are more positive, perhaps.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, for me, it's an ode to his mother.
Oh.
It's memories of his own poverty-stricken childhood. And it seems like this is a tribute. He's paying respects to his mother. She works so hard for her family. You know, she's out at the crack of dawn. She comes back late at night. They're always asleep. They can't do anything. They can't do the chores. They can't pay off the debts. It's only up to her.
It's all on her shoulders.
Yeah. And she's got so little to bring them. She can't bring them the honey. All that's left is the piles of dust. And yet, her return is special.
She's earned the bread for the whole family, no matter how little it is, perhaps.
But not just that, it's the fact that she's doing all this. And for me, it's like she's blessed with the moonlight and the starlight. These are her gifts to her children. She brings magic back into the house. She may not be able to bring enough food, but just her presence brings magic to their lives.
That's enough for them. And as children, I think that's true, right? The younger you are, especially, you don't really worry about the material things. It's all about the people.
Yeah.
And I think you get corrupted along the way, and then toys are all you want for a little while.
Well, speak for yourself.
I still want them, yes. But Sherry saying, yeah, the moonlight shining a light on this hard-working mother.
Exactly.
Maybe.
That's what it is. It's almost as if the starlight and the moonlight are giving blessings to the mother, are thanking her when no one else is thanking her for her hard work.
No one else to see, but the light is shining on her. It's seeing.
Yeah.
Someone's seeing, some all-being thing, perhaps.
Yeah, and then she shakes off the starlight and the moonlight into the house.
And Silver Granny saying maybe a single mother's plight. It
Absolutely,
sounds like.
yeah.
Yeah, and Tropical saying, and there are debts. How will the kids survive?
Well, fortunately they did, because he was alive to write this poem. So that's the good news. But obviously it was really, really hard for them at that time.
Yeah, that's a really good way to look at it. I'm sure it's got something along those lines with a mother and paying his respects to her in that way.
That's what I just said.
Being thankful.
That's what I described to you.
I'm saying you're accurate, Paul, so you can stay for
All right.
segment 3 as well.
Fine. Did that get you down? Wasn't that more positive?
Yeah, with the moonlight and the starlight, definitely. And you're right, bringing magic to the house, no matter how materially small.
There's no pleasing Peter, I tell you. No pleasing him at all today.
I am hard to please. Raoul and Sherry have come back with some ideas on the cold water. Raoul saying, drinking the cold, pure water can maybe implicate both people are together in that moment. Maybe both drinking.
Brilliant idea. Why not? Yes, that connection with that action in the present.
And Sherry saying, but do you quench your thirst with the cool water, or do you drown yourself?
There's no drowning, Sherry. There's no drowning in this poem.
I
can
hope,
say that now.
I hope not, but I get your vibe, maybe the bodily desires like overwhelming you from that perhaps more important deep dive mentally into missing someone or something.
But
Who
also
knows?
like that moment when you're in torment and you need to shock your system to get you out of it.
Yes, cold water could perhaps do
Yeah.
that, right? We've got a third and final poem coming up after the song break. Again, no big previews, but the title at least.
Really?
Yeah, I want it now.
All right. No expectations.
Okay.
What I learned from the sea.
Zero expectations, I promise.
Good.
Let's get
I'll see if I'll stay for that.
I'm in London.
I'm in Australia.
Tokyo,
The Philippines.
Finland,
Indonesia.
New York.
Arirang Radio.
Now live in Seoul.
By the sea near my home, the poplars rustle their leaves, whispering, "Not a dream," and the brilliant, flowing folds of the widow's skirt incite delirium. There is all this, and all that, but nothing of such bewildering abundance as the sea. But the one thing I have learned most repeatedly from watching the sea by my home for these 41 years is how to take the flower scales and burnish bright the gleaming or swaying that remains. The trace when a person dies.
I do love how concise all these poems are.
You like a short poem?
Not because they're over and done with, but because, like you mentioned with the first one, he seems to get all the points done and like get a lot of emotions flowing, but with very sparse words.
That's what I love about it. I have to say that sometimes some poets go on and on and on and on. You're like, oh, this poem's 3 pages long.
Absolutely.
But no, Park has this talent to encapsulate his meaning and also encapsulate this brilliant imagery in literally just maybe 20 lines or so.
Yeah, it's unbelievably concise. And he does seem to cover a good 1 or 2 topics, like more than one in each poem. And actually with that one, I was thinking, I need some more words. Like, I can't just end here. Because the first half seems to be about nature and the abundance of the sea. And then the second part, maybe about mourning here while looking out from his home.
Yeah, I think so. That's the feeling I get. Like, he talks about the sea being a bewildering abundance. And I think of that like being infinity or time, everlasting, always carrying on. And everything gets lost in it, just as everyone dies. But when you look out to the sea, you can see the traces of the people you love who have passed on. And I think it's a really beautiful sort of poetic sentiment that, no matter what's happened, I've lived these 41 years. I've lost a lot. But when I look out at the sea, I feel that calm and I'm able to remember, I'm able to see traces of these people.
I think it's very important for humans to do that, right? Go out and see, be in awe of nature and how big everything is. Because, I don't know, when you live in an urban life, you don't get that feeling very often, I feel. But when you go out to the sea and you look out at it, there's just something like, I don't know, that makes you more thoughtful. Yeah. And you kind of contemplate things and you realise, I'm a little insignificant personally. I'm part of a greater thing. And I guess, I don't know, I do get emotional when I look out at the sea and think of some loved ones that I've lost in the past. There's something about it, I think.
There is. I think, it's a connection that we all feel. And there's a vastness there, like infinity, like, whatever it may be, that sort of reminds us of our own mortality and makes us think of, those we've lost.
Yeah, Tropic Girl says, I really do want my ashes to be scattered in the ocean when I die. There's something quite poetic, I feel, about that, maybe, the ashes returning to the ocean. And Sherry says, I like the way that he sweeps you up into this full story in just a short passage. Yeah, it kind of is like a platform, and then you just create more of it in your mind almost. Yeah?
Exactly. Yeah, Tropic Girl also saying that's very profound, and it's why we need a Daily K book club, so we can discuss all these things and hearing all the different perspectives. So it's autobiography almost, she's asking. And I would say, yes, these are all poems about his own experiences with nature or his own reminiscences. There are some lovely poems of him as a kid and the joy that he gets. He talks about going swimming with his friends and taking off all their clothes and running about on the sand. And these sort of images that we can all relate to because we were all young once. It doesn't matter that we're not necessarily Korean, that we didn't grow up in the same place, that we weren't as poor as him, that we didn't have the same life. But his poems are universal. And that's something really difficult, I think, for a poet to achieve. Sure. That anyone from anywhere can pick up one of these poems and go, I get this. Yeah. I understand this. This speaks to me.
And be touched by it, yeah. Pei saying Paul's readings are amazing.
Oh, thank you, Pei.
Tune in every Wednesday at this time for them. Lynn from North Carolina saying nature puts everything into perspective. I think that's so true. And I love it. I think a good bit of advice, if you're really always stressed and in the rat race, just look up, right? Look up at the sky when it's daytime. And I think that gives you a sense of awe and your place in the universe.
Well, as long as you can see the clouds.
This is true. If it's pitch black or if it's completely cloudy, you're right. Maybe those big fluffy white clouds when they're up there.
Like the day before yesterday, I sat in the park and had this wonderful moment of looking up at the sky and appreciating how awesome the world, the universe is, how lucky we are to be here.
Yeah, it's just those simple things that make me appreciate life more, rather than the latest technology or folding smartphone, right? You look up to the sky and you're like, Wow, that's not something we can do.
And have you watched then?
No, I still do appreciate this. Wow, look at that watch. Raoul also says the sea has that quality. It can be quiet, it can be savage, it can be like our minds when we are recalling memories. Sometimes we remember and bring some peace to our minds, but sometimes we're just angry and sad and think on things that are lost.
Yeah, really, really, really insightful. Thank you. What I love about doing poetry on this segment is that we get all these wonderful opinions from people all around the world, all with different perspectives. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we encourage each other to dig deeper, and sometimes we have completely different perspectives.
Absolutely, yes. And I do feel a little melancholy after these 3 poems.
Good.
But also hopeful at the same time and like inspired by the nature aspect of them, right?
Yeah, well, it felt like the right time to bring it in because last week here in Korea, we had temperatures up to 16, 17 degrees.
Yes, last weekend was actually pretty warm in a jacket.
Yeah, the trees were covered in gold and brown and red leaves. And now this week, we're -3 first thing in the morning. And the trees are completely bare. It feels like the perfect time to appreciate that nostalgia as we head into winter. We long for spring, we long for summer, we long for autumn, and yet at the same time, we can still appreciate what we have right now.
Absolutely. Don't be too downbeat about winter. I know there's that seasonal affective disorder, which is a real thing due to a lack of light, but I think there are aspects of winter that can make you feel in awe as well.
Absolutely. Like the first proper snow. We haven't had the first proper snow here in Seoul yet. No snow settling on the ground. When that happens, that is an amazing moment.
Looking forward to that. And a massive, even bigger thanks must go to Paul for this book reading today.
Thanks to you, thanks to everyone. Thanks as always to the Literature Translation Institute of Korea for their help with copyright permission for this broadcast. Thanks to Pak Chaesam for his soothing poetry and to David R. McCann and Jiwon Shin for their gorgeous translations. I will be back next week with another book. I can't tell you what it is yet because I don't know myself.
Clay B on V Live is saying these readings are awesome and living in Arizona, I long for the winter. It's still pretty warm in the middle of the day.
Come on over, Clay. It's nice and cold here.
You can share the freezing temperatures. Paul, have a wonderful week. We'll see you next Wednesday.
See you then. Goodbye.
You can listen to Check It Out with Paul Matthews on Arirang Radio's #DailyK every Wednesday from 10 a.m. KST.